made the decision to donate Gia's organs so that others may benefit. Our daughter was loving, kind, and this gift honors her life. Shay Chucklenaskett, who was athletic and one of 5 children, passed away next. 15-year-old Andrew Fryberg, the overprotective firstborn grandson, lingered in the hospital for 2 weeks before passing away on November 7th. The only survivor, 14-year-old Nate Hatch, had been shot in the jaw, telling first responders at the scene that it was his friend that shot him, and they were like brothers. Following the shootings, Nate sent tweets such as, "I love you and I forgive you, Jaylen, rest in peace. I miss you, brother. Rip Andrew Martin Lee Fryberg. I hope you like it up there and we will someday reunite. You were my other half. You were my brother. We were supposed to conquer this life together. I can't even begin to imagine life without you. I love you so much and I will live every day thinking about you. And I'm happy and thankful I'm alive, but what is life without my best friend?" One student found a bullet in his backpack that had bounced off the corner of a library book, gone through a hard plastic ice pack, and partway through a composition notebook before coming to rest at the bottom. When all the students in the cafeteria were interviewed, many of them didn't know the kids involved because they were freshmen, but many friends and classmates indicated that there had been strife amongst the group, between Andrew and Jaylen specifically, over Zoe Galasso. Jaylen had even sent tweets alluding to this, such as, quote, "Dude, she tells me everything, and now I fucking hate you. You're no longer my brother." And that last tweet on Thursday morning, which read, quote, "It won't last. It'll never last." Add that to the breakup and fight and suspension, and this was as much of a motive as the SMART report could come up with. Their most valid conclusion was that the spree was premeditated. There were also conflicting reports about a substitute teacher and what she knew before the shooting. Apparently, she had gone to dinner with a friend and said that she had received information when she was substituting at Marysville-Pilchuk High School just 2 days before the shooting. This teacher then gave 2 sworn statements to police. On October 29th, police interviewed her at her home. She recounted subbing for Mr. Gabrio's reading class on October 22nd, 6th period, and entering a rowdy class where kids wouldn't sit in their assigned seats or do the work written on the board. She wasn't able to properly take roll and therefore didn't know any of the children's names. She said that a student came to her desk and apologized for the ruckus, that his classmates were reacting to rumors of a possible shooting in the cafeteria 2 days from then. Much of the class was looking over one student's shoulder, she said, apparently watching him tweet about it. The substitute said that she asked for names, but the student shrank away. After class, she says she went to the office and told the attendance lady, who supposedly told her that talk like that had been going around. Even the staff seemed to know, according to what she told police in her first interview, and she says she left a note in her substitute folder in the office, as well as a note for the teacher whose class she was covering. Authorities say that between the first and second interviews with the substitute, her claim was vigorously investigated. None of the school employees that they spoke to had seen any note regarding a shooting, and no one in the front office matched the description the substitute gave police. By her second interview, her story had evolved into a confused and general recollection. Her memories seemed to have mixed with the nonstop media coverage she'd been watching since the incident occurred. The teacher changed her story during the second interview but blamed investigators for talking her into it. It was determined that if she did know, she didn't tell anyone. Here is what she told Janet Kim of the local Fox affiliate Q13.
And he came up to me and he said, "Mrs. Cooper," he said, "I know there's going to be a shooting tomorrow." I said, "What?" And he said, "Well, you may have heard about it. The kids are using their cell phones. It's coming up." And he said that somebody by the name of Fryberg was going to bring a gun to school, and there would be a shooting in the cafeteria at 10 o'clock. When I talked to the policeman then, he said, no, it didn't happen. They didn't have any notes. He said, you are a liar.
So you essentially told them what you thought they wanted to hear?
Mm-hmm. I did. At that point, because it just, they wouldn't let me go. They were still screaming at me, and I just wanted it to stop.
Ultimately, the victims' families filed suit against the school district and the substitute. The plaintiffs accused the substitute of having prior knowledge of possible violence at the high school and of telling no one. Also included in that suit was Jaylen's father, as it was determined that the .40 caliber Beretta he used to commit the murders belonged to his dad, Ray Fryberg Jr. He had purchased 5 guns at the local Cabela store in the year and a half prior to his son bringing one of them to school. Federal prosecutors determined that, even though he had bought them legally, he technically shouldn't have been allowed to. An order of protection against him filed in 2002 was awarded on the basis of assault against his then-girlfriend, and it had no end date. Ray Fryberg Jr. claimed that the order was never served, so he didn't know he was unable to buy guns. The prosecution countered, saying that he testified in court in 2012 for violating that order of protection, and that he had lied when filling out the forms to purchase the firearms. He pleaded no contest in 2012 and received a sentence of 1 year of probation. In September 2015, Ray Fryberg Jr. was sentenced to 2 years in prison for illegally purchasing and possessing 6 firearms, including the Beretta Jaylen had used in his shooting spree. He never responded to any case filings regarding the civil suit, but the school district and substitute settled for $18 million on July 31, 2017. All of Jaylen Fryberg's pictures were included in the 2014-2015 yearbook, though the community was understandably divided over the decision. The cafeteria where the massacre took place was immediately closed and eventually replaced with a new food court area for students and staff named the Commons in January 2017. The fire alarm was replaced as not to trigger memories for those present that day. It was 6 months later, in July 2017, that the families settled that civil suit, and a year after that, the final class of students who witnessed the shooting graduated in June 2018, just months after the school shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High in Parkland, Florida. Students and staff participated in the nationwide walkout in remembrance of the victims in early March, and a delegation from the tribe traveled to Washington, D.C. later that same month for the National Walkout for Our Lives. Nate, Shay, and Andrew's mothers were there. The community and families remained bewildered at Jaylen's true motive. Although he instructed his dad to read the note on his bed, nothing was ever found. Native American youth suicides had only been climbing since the Red Lake shooting and have reached crisis levels since the shooting at Marysville-Pilchuk. Generational trauma, historical trauma, poverty-level incomes, healthcare disparities, and the prevalence of domestic violence and substance abuse issues all contribute to the feelings of isolation and despair among Native American youth. The more remote nations suffer all of these but magnified, as the lack of nearby employment leads directly to fractured families. These issues don't appear to be resolvable anytime soon. Always remember that if you or someone you know has thoughts of self-harm, suicide hotlines exist to try and help. In the U.S., call 1-800-273-8255, and outside the U.S., please seek out your nation's crisis intervention phone numbers and resources. And don't forget to spread the word about 1-866-SPEAK-UP, the place where young people can anonymously speak to a trained professional about weapons threats at their school or in their communities. As always, Thanks for joining me on what turned into the first episode of 2020. Stay tuned for the promo from the Morbidology podcast. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. I'll be back in just 1 week to bring you more murderous minors. But until then, lovelies, don't be scared.
Morbidology is a weekly true crime podcast hosted by me, Emily G. Thompson, author of Unsolved Child Murders and co-author of Unsolved Murders, True Crime Cases Uncovered.
911 emergency.
My son shot my husband. I need an ambulance. He's bleeding.
Using investigative research combined with primary audio, including 911 calls, interviews, and trial testimony, Morbidology takes a look at some of the world's most heinous murders.
Do you know why you're here?
For a home invasion gone terribly wrong.
Listen to Morbidology now on Himalaya, Apple, Stitcher, Podbean, or wherever else you get podcasts.